All right, so Joe Biden is unofficially, officially president-elect. And I say that because I think this is far from over. I mean, there's a lot of people out talking about it yesterday, some people celebrating, some people not celebrating. And again, people think that it's over, but it's far from over because it couldn't be more obvious that there was voter fraud going on in many swing states, namely Pennsylvania. Um, and it's here's the thing. I think whether or not Biden or Trump ends up being president is comes down to how much faith do you have in the legal system. Personally, for me in the States, I mean, and Canada as well, it's pretty little, which means I think Biden probably will end up being president. And why I say that is that it's very obvious that Democrats cheated. It couldn't be more obvious. There's numerous examples of it. I mean, you have numerous examples of 100, 150,000 uh, late ballots coming in, literally all of them for Biden. Like, if that's not a coincidence, I don't know what is. You have, and like I say, there's endless examples. You got Project Veritas. I mean, if you've just been paying attention on social media the last few days, you would have seen them. So again, it's very obvious. And another way you know the Democrats cheated is that they have resisted any attempts to strengthen the integrity of the election. And they've been vehemently against any sort of audits or investigations into said shady stuff going on lately. So again, it's I don't like this saying because I think it's when people use it in other ways, I think it's a really bad way of using it, and that they justify bad stuff. But the if you have nothing to hide argument does apply here, I believe, because not because I think that argument makes sense in the other ways, but it makes sense in that there's too much of a coincidence here. There's too much of a coincidence. So yeah, whether or not Trump or Biden ends up being president, in January, I think it comes down to one's faith in the legal system. For me, it's pretty low, which is why I think Biden will end up being president. I think they'll get away with the cheating and Trump will leave office. Now, even if you like Biden or even if you don't really care, you don't really like either one, to me, it is a terrible, terrible miscarriage of justice. Now, again, was the cheating enough to sway the election? That is, or was it not enough to sway the election? Rather, that is possible as well. That is possible. But again, given the fact that the Democrats have um, vehemently been against any form of auditing, it probably shows that it probably was, especially given the fact that Trump was on pace to win Pennsylvania actually by quite a bit until all these mail-ins came in. Same goes for Michigan. Same goes for Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin was actually very narrow, and even places like Nevada and Arizona were also very close. So there should be investigations. If there actually is justice, if there actually is a somewhat functioning legal system, because given the amount of people, the Clintons of the world, the Peter Strzok's of the world, given that those people aren't in jail right now, there still isn't much faith in the legal system, regardless. But if they can get away with cheating in a presidential election, there is no such thing as rule of law anymore. And I think that's a very scary precedent that a lot of people aren't talking about. Again, regardless of who you like or if you don't like any of them or if you like both of them, I don't know. But how can you have a functioning country, a functioning democracy when there's no checks and balances, when one side doesn't have to follow the rules or neither side has to follow the rules going forward, apparently, if this sticks. So if you ask me, it's a very scary precedent going forward if this sticks. And I think the mainstream media is overplaying their hand here in that I think that they're playing it as they know in the back of their heads, probably, there's no way they don't know, that it's probably more likely than not, at least based off the evidence that I've seen, that Trump is going to win these court battles, at least most of them, and he'll end up president. And when that happens, they'll have something to talk about for the next 3 or 4 years that will keep those ratings up. Because if Biden becomes president, they're only going to be able to talk about Trump for so long. Eventually, it's going to get to the point where it's like, hey, Biden's been president for a year or 2 years. Like, why are we still talking about Trump? Right? So I think the mainstream media is overplaying their hand here in that all these mainstream media outlets are calling it for Biden and there's let's start the celebrations for Biden. And if Trump gets in, boom, we got Russia collusion 2.0, and that Trump stole the election. He was bribing officials or whatever theory they'll come up with. I'm it'll be he stole the election. I'm just trying to figure out. I would have to figure out exactly what they're going to say to justify said BS, I guess. So anyway, this is going to get very interesting. Like in 2000, I think it took a little over a month to figure this out. So it's probably going to go into December, heck, maybe even into January for all we know, before we know who's actually going to be president. So the one thing we do know is that anybody who thinks talking about how Biden's president, it's settled. No, it's far from settled. It's far from settled. So anyway, the next thing to bring up is, I mean, the good news of this whole situation is nobody cares about the whole virus situation anymore, and that you had gatherings in cities across the US of thousands of people, maybe even tens of thousands of people. And again, nobody cares about the virus situation anymore. And it'll be very interesting to see in a couple of weeks if the cases massively tick up. I would bet money that they don't, because the last time uh, these kind of things happened, they didn't. So yeah, I mean, this also just goes to show that hardly anybody actually cares about the virus situation. I've been talking about this for months, going back to literally like May or June. No, hardly anybody actually cares. The reason most people claim to care is that they want to spin it to benefit their side politically. Whatever their political agenda is, they want to spin it to benefit that somehow. That's why most people care. And it just boggles my mind how people can still look at you with a straight face and tell you they care about this, but not care about this kind of stuff. It just boggles my mind. And again, like I say, the real reason is that it's a political thing. But if they were to tell you that, it would make them look pretty stupid. So that's why they don't bring that up. This is from Paul Mitchell. Now, again, I've talked about these kind of things before, but this is a study out of the Washington Examiner. You can go look it up for yourself if you want. Saying a randomized control trial conducted in 2015 studying 1,607 Vietnamese healthcare workers, the penetration of cloth masks by particles was almost 97% compared with 44% with medical masks. What are masks actually achieving? Again, this is exactly what I've been talking about. Cloth masks do nothing. They do more harm than good. There is multiple studies. I've literally made videos talking about them, showing they do more harm than good. Most people wear the cloth masks. There is no need for that. There is no need. They do more harm than good. The studies are very clear. Medical masks, I think you could make the point that they are somewhat effective. But again, that is with people that are either sick themselves or are working at a hospital with people that are sick themselves, right? So the idea, there is still no evidence that regardless of what kind of mask it is, that it makes sense for healthy people to be wearing masks. There is no evidence to that. In fact, there's evidence to the contrary. And this is the thing that really bothers me about people these days, is that everybody likes to talk about all the time about, whenever you get into debates with people, it's, like, you got studies to back that up? Where's your evidence? But yet when it comes to this stuff, they could care less, right? Like, this is, another thing I really can't stand is people love to mock people like Alex Jones because he has some crazy beliefs. I mean, I still think that he's more sane than the average person. Like, I don't even think it's close. But again, he has some beliefs that there's nothing that you can really use to back it up, right? But again, the vast majority of the public goes along with this garbage when they have no evidence whatsoever to back that up. Like, talking about the most crazy of crazy things Alex Jones talks about is no more insane than thinking that wearing a mask is going to reduce the spread. It is no more crazy at all, right? No more crazy. So again, that's just something that really bothers me. I don't know how people can. Oh, I guess I do. Most people nowadays, their beliefs, they aren't shrouded in objective reality. They don't care about they don't care about evidence, right? Like people love to talk about, their back up their beliefs with quote unquote evidence when there is some, but when there isn't some, they don't care, right? When it comes to this stuff, when it comes to this stuff, they don't care, right? It's just it's very insane. And this is the one thing that I would point out going forward is that I don't think anybody can mock anybody, or pretty much anybody can mock pretty much anybody for having crazy beliefs going forward in society, when most people buy into this mask garbage, right? Like, if you want to mock someone for having crazy beliefs going forward, I think you first need to acknowledge that the vast majority of the population went along with the lockdowns when there was no evidence of them working, especially later on. If you want to say right off the bat, maybe. But the vast majority of the public went along with the mask mandates when there was no evidence of it, and all the experts told us that they don't work, they do more harm than good. Like, the insanity is absolutely off the charts when it comes to this stuff. So anyway, the last stuff to bring up is kind of to touch on this whole immigration thing with France and whatnot going forward. So um, this is Maxime Bernier responding to a Macron quote saying, "We believe in the Enlightenment and women have the same rights as men. People who think otherwise, let them do it somewhere else, not on French soil." Now again, too little too late, I think, is a massive understatement when it comes to this, in that if you were worried about that, Macron, you probably should have cut immigration long ago. Again, so a lot of these countries are too far gone. France, England, Germany, all these countries are too far gone. It's only a matter of time till they lose the rights that they have. It's only a matter of time till free speech is non-existent there and blasphemy laws are in place. It's only a matter of time. And Canada's teetering on the edge as well. I mean, in fact, I would be very surprised if we can go back, because even if the Liberals get voted out, we have the Conservatives who are still going to keep immigration, maybe not as high as the Liberals, but still way too high. So Canada is probably too far gone as well. And this is the problem, that it doesn't. I don't understand why we have to go over this so much. And again, the people watching this probably already know this, but for the people that don't, it doesn't matter what color someone's skin is. Like, I don't under, here's the thing. The reason why they always focus on race is because they themselves are racist, right? Like, you never look at, I mean, the good example, the white people in South Africa are being persecuted pretty heavily, arguably more. In fact, I say it is more than any of the Syrian refugees or any of that garbage. Um, have you ever seen the Liberals call for, yeah, we got to bring in these white South African refugees? No. They only want the people that are going to vote for them, right? And that's why they view it as a racist thing, which is why they always project it as being a racist thing on the other side, because in their minds, it is a racist thing. So they assume that for the other side, oh, it must be racist. And this is why there's so many political disagreements and craziness going on these days, is that people project so much. Like, people just project, right? And that's the problem too, is that they spend literally zero time trying to figure out why the other side believes what they believe. And that's why the political tensions are so hot these days. And like I say, Maxime Bernier says, "Go live elsewhere if you reject our values." It's a clear statement. Imagine being a Canadian prime minister who would say this instead of constantly pushing for more diversity and welcoming anybody, including extremists, into our country. And again, these people like to claim that they have this compassionate position and, oh, we just want to help the poor refugees, right? But that's not the case. These people want ISIS fighters to be allowed to come back. These people want the most fringe of fringe people to be able to come. It is not a they like to pretend that they're the ones that hold the most reasonable position, when it's the exact opposite. And that's one of the other many problems. But again, the main problem when it comes to immigration is that if the people coming don't have shared values, then it's not going to work. It's not going to work by definition. That's literally like saying, yeah, we're gonna marry these two people that have exact opposite values. Do you actually think that marriage isn't gonna work? Well, of course not. That's why so many marriages these days don't work, is they're not based on shared values. They're based on lust, or other garbage that people like to base their relationships off these days. And this is why it's not working. It's not. Here's the thing, like I say, France, Germany, England, Sweden, these countries are perfect examples of this multiculturalism, diversity garbage not working. Like, what more evidence do we need? I don't know. Like, I'd really like to ask these people that support this stuff is that what would you need to see to change your minds? And I don't think they would be able to give you a straight answer. No, again, their main argument is always, well, we should be welcoming the refugees, and we were all immigrants at one point, which is complete bunk. It is a massive, very misleading statement to say that. It's very misleading because when when my ancestors came over from Europe, there was no welfare state, there was no free healthcare. They were settlers, right? They built a house with their bare hands and farmed for a living. That's what they did, right? It's completely different nowadays. You can come over and you can get free everything, right? Free every you can get. I think these refugees are getting the equivalent of like $30,000 a year in benefits. That's more than a pretty good amount more than a minimum wage job to do nothing. And this is the problem too, that we can't afford it. Like, here's the thing: when it comes to mass immigration, I would tell these people that support it. If you can pull off mass immigration without raising taxes and without raising the deficit, be my guest. But you're never going to be able to do that. And this is the one thing they always bring up too. Oh, they're not net drains on society. But yet on the other side, you'll tell them, okay, let's do that then. Let's not allow people, or at the very least, a clear majority have to be net positives. They'll never go for a policy like that because they know that they're net negatives, and they know in the back of their head the main reason they're bringing them over is for the votes. And secondly, that they're genuinely people that their ability to recognize and perceive threats is very poor, in that they don't think down the road. It's like, yeah, if we bring in a 500,000 immigrants from the third world, it's only a matter of time until we resemble a third world country. They don't have the ability to think that far ahead. They're simply thinking about things only in the here and now, right? So again, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you follow me on those other platforms. All those links are in the description. If you like to donate, I got links for that. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.